Hello, TikTok world. I'm going live to give money advice to the class of 2023, in particular the anti-capitalists, the young people already thinking this way in the class of 2023. And I am going to be joined by Mike Hoag. Let's see if I can get him on here with me. It's always a challenge for me to do this. Let's see. Um, if I can find him, but thank you for joining me if you're already here. There are so many thoughts I want to share with people about what I wish I had known about money. Mike, if you're on here, it would be great if you could send me a request. I'm not seeing you or it. But yes, all right. So and I throughout this, I would love to have other people who join, in the chat, in the comments, adding, oh, here we go, there's Mike. Your thoughts, what's the money advice that you would give to young anti-capitalists, high school, college? That's what we want to talk through tonight. I'm already in my early 50s. Mike's not quite that old, but we have some ideas and wisdom that we'd like to share. Mike, are you there?
I think I am.
Please join. All right, excellent. I hear you. Can
Oh,
you
you
hear
don't
me?
see me yet, huh?
I
Yes, I
see
can.
your avatar picture. But oh, good. It looks like we're getting some people joining, some people interested in money advice for the class of 2023. This won't be, welcome, Mike. This won't be typical money advice for those of you that are just finding this live by chance and not familiar with Mike, either Mike or I. We're not going to be telling you to invest in the stock market and index funds and buy up a lot of rental properties and drive up rental prices and affordable housing issues in your area. We've got some other thoughts to share with people this evening about money and advice for young people. So for anyone who doesn't know me already or follow me, my name is Laura. And I blog at richandresilientliving.com. I'm a green living and money coach, and I try to help reluctant capitalists achieve financial resilience on our climate challenge planet without destroying the future for which they're preparing. And tonight, Mike and I want to have a talk about that, but more emphasis on, what we would advise people at a younger age. So, Mike, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself? And you can mention that we co-authored a book. I didn't go into that.
Oh, yeah, there's that whole thing. Huh? Yeah, I'm Mike Hoag, and I am basically I've been a permaculture activist, which is a strange thing to be, I guess, for the last 15 or so years as my full-time gig. Before that, I worked in a lot of different areas of the farm economy and as an environmental activist and as an artist as well. So, in fact, so another thing that's going to make our advice different than I think a lot of the standard advice is, yeah, we're not going to tell you to invest in the stock market. We're not going to, because if when we invest in the stock market, we know we're investing in the companies that are destroying the future, right? So especially to tell young people to invest in the same like corporations we know are the leading cause of climate change, of mass extinctions, of ocean dead zones, of plastics pollution and exploitation. To tell young people to invest in the corporations that are destroying your future is just like insanity to me, where we're at. So we're not going to tell you to do that, and we're not going to tell you that you need to sign up to go be exploited by those corporations either. So if you look at my life path, for example, I've found a way to escape that system largely and live largely outside of it, choosing what I want to do and what I want to work on, and to be able to spend my time doing regenerative things. And really, that's what our whole book is about, too: growing free, which means financially resilient and economically empowered. Um, and it's a book about getting the life of your dreams without losing your soul or destroying the planet. That about cover it, Laura?
Yes. Thank you so much. And I can see that this is a hot topic. We've got lots of people joining us. And again, just to reiterate, because I only have 32 characters when I choose the title, and if I could have had the title of my choice, it would have been Money Advice for Young Anti-Capitalists. But instead, I turned it into Money Advice for the Class of 2023, which is as close as I could come. So again, this won't be the standard money advice. So hopefully, those of you who are still interested will stick around. But and Mike, you've already hit on a number of things. I had made some notes about, things I want to talk about, in particular, things that I wish I was thinking through, like, what do I wish I had known about money and how it works and how capitalism works at that age. And one of the things that I wanted to start out with was um, the idea of lifestyle creep and lifestyle inflation, especially for those graduating college. They're going to go out and get a job, and they're going to start probably earning more money than they ever have. And they're going to see this money coming in, and it might be the instinct might be more to just go spend it all, and not save any of it, just keep spending. And thinking that as their salary increases, that their spending should keep up with it. And I've always been rather frugal, but it's something that I could have kept in mind a lot more when I was younger, especially if I had realized how much my spending was upholding the elements of capitalism that make me cringe, and just being more aware of that. So definitely this idea of lifestyle inflation. I have a bit more I would like to say about it, but I'd like to offer you an opportunity to maybe riff off of that one for the moment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's such a big thing. And the other part of that too is that we get into this trap of, as you said, lifestyle creep, so that as your income goes up, you just keep spending more and more. And so we stay in a hole, right? We start in the hole, and instead of digging ourselves out, we keep digging ourselves deeper every time we get a raise. And the funny thing about that is, yeah, especially if you're a young person right now, look around. All those old people are boring. I don't really mean that literally, Laura. But the thing is that when you look around, what really makes life exciting and vibrant and wonderful, and really young people have a lot of these things already figured out, and we forget those things as we get older because we get into the trap of thinking that we need to chase money instead. But then we go to like the movies, and we go to theater, and we what even going back to like opera and stuff like that, it's on all the media. It focuses on people who are living these young kind of bohemian lifestyles, who are doing art with their lives, doing meaningful things with their lives. That's what we're attracted to even as we get older. Those are the things that make life rich and fulfilling. And so instead, we get lulled into this idea where we're, going to get some kind of a job and chase some kind of like end game retirement or something where finally we get to be happy again. No, we don't have to wait. We can be happy now, and we don't have to sacrifice our whole lives chasing after something that we may never even get to because we're not digging ourselves out of the hole. We're digging ourselves deeper. We're not even going in the right direction that we want to be going in.
Yes. Oh, so many yes, yes, yeses. And I think that the spending, I see we have a comment: to be happy, but financial security worries me. How do you balance both? Well, I'm gonna dive in on this one, Mike, but I imagine you'll have things to say as well. One thing that comes to mind for me right away is something I talk a lot about are the multiple forms of capital, and thinking in terms of how security comes in many forms. And what we really want money for is to access all of these other forms of capital, be it material capital, the physical things like the building or whatever structure we live in, the cars we drive, the phones that we're using. So that is an example of material capital. There's living capital, which is like the fruit trees, the parks, the air we breathe. Experiential capital, the things we know how to do, the skills we have, and there are a number of others, but there are all these other forms of capital, and that's what we want the money for. And the real security comes in these other forms of capital: social capital, community, and connection. So really starting to think about what are the other forms of wealth and security in my life, partly as a safety net, and just, getting that safer, grounded feeling, but also as a way to save more of your own money and access things without spending as much money and getting more creative. We get so focused on that hamster wheel that we need to be on. And I gave a presentation to a group yesterday, a group of creatives, talking about capitalism survival strategies. And one of the women made the point, and I can't remember exactly how she said it, but when we're caught in the fear mindset, that something happens physiologically in our brain, and it shuts down our creativity. And that's that when we're coming up with the creative solutions, we're more resilient, we're more secure, but it's also that self-actualization and that joy. That would be one thing I would say to that. Mike, what else would you like to say to that comment?
Yeah, I was very lucky when I was a young person and I went to college. My first degree path was one of those art kinds of livelihoods I was just talking about, the things that we think make life rich and exciting and meaningful and happy. And one of my mentors, and by the way, for anyone who joined, Laura and I are talking about money advice for the young anti-capitalist. And right now we're answering this question of how we can be both happy and have financial security, which is really the whole topic that our book is about. And the advice that I was given as a young person was from one of my mentors was that if you're going to make it in one of these kinds of privileged fields, which could be like art or music or activism of some kind, or farming or permaculture, all of these things are kind of privileged fields because there are a lot of people who would love to do that work. So there's a lot of competition. And another way of putting this is if you want to spend your life energy and your lifetime doing what you want, then you have to be really creative about how you're going to do things. And it doesn't just mean you're going to follow one path. You have to think holistically, as Laura was just saying, and you have to do some other things that virtually everyone that I know who's been successful with this, they've all done these same things. In our book, we call this the thistle strategy, because the thistle is a really resilient weed, and so we have to be as resilient as thistles. And so to go through that just really quick, we have to think about having a transition plan. So we're probably going to start in the capitalist economy, and then we're going to try to set a plan to get out of it. Next, we got to think holistically, as Laura was just saying. That's the H in thistle. The I is that we have to be investing. And this is one of the most important strategies. But we're not talking about the stock market or real estate, like we said. But there are so many different ways that we can be investing, but you got to do it. We have to be doing that. The T in the thistle, the second T, is for teaming up. Everyone who's able to do this, it's because they've built a secure community network. You just, as a young person, I have to say, you just cannot underestimate how valuable it is to have a support network in your community to help support you on your path. And you could be mindful and direct about trying to grow that. And the next thing is stacking, which means that we want to just have a lot of different ways of doing things and getting incomes. And that's what really builds that resilience. So if you really want financial security, then having, like in nature, we say no organism just has one way of meeting its needs. It has stacked ways of doing it. It has different levels of resiliency. So we want to copy that too. Nature does a lot of things that are smart. So if we can copy that, we're really going to be well off. And finally, we can design to be lucky. Is the L, the second L, and then the E at the end is knowing what is enough for you, so that you're not continuously digging that hole we talked about at the beginning, where we start digging to get ourselves out. And instead, we only dig ourselves deeper because we don't know what is enough for us. And so that's, the whole big picture that we kind of go into a lot in Laura's videos. She has videos on virtually all of those. You can flip through those and learn a lot about it on her TikTok. And of course, if you want to go deeper, then we do have that book, Growing Free, on it too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for that question. And we encourage anyone who's here and with us live, let us, put your questions in the comments in the chat. We're happy to take them on. And or just send us a comment, sharing your thoughts about or advice you have for other people. How do we navigate money? What are your thoughts around for young anti-capitalist, for navigating around money, because it's a big topic, and there's a lot to keep in mind, and it's complicated and complex out there. But we can do it together. We can share information, and yes, so this idea of enough ties very nicely back to lifestyle creep, and I think for high school students especially, or even those still in college, thinking about student loans, and balancing that, you one of the worst things you can do to yourself is cripple yourself with student loan debt right out of the gate. It's so hard to overcome that. So really be mindful of how much loan debt you're taking on, and learn about strategies if you do have debt for paying it off and tackling it, and avoiding that lifestyle creep, and knowing what is enough for you is really going to help you manage it if you do have debt to tackle. And I see we have another question, but if you'd like to say anything to student loan debt, Mike, go ahead and please do, and then we can go to that question.
Yeah, it's student loan debt is a really tough thing. One of my I'll say old economy jobs, one of my traditional job jobs before I started really becoming my own boss, was teaching at a college, and because I was teaching there, I often I did some work as an advisor, and and it was a really strange situation to be in, where I was an advisor at a college and working with students, and oftentimes thinking, the best advice that I might have for this person's goals would be to not go to this college and not get the student loan debt. So, be really careful. Yeah, I would say be very thoughtful about it. Don't let someone who's older pressure you into that decision if you feel like it's not the right decision for you. I really feel like mentors and mentorship is so important. Someone else asked and I want to just jump head for a second here. How do you go about figuring out what's enough for you? One of the ways is look at mentors, look for people who are ahead on your path or doing things that are really interesting to you, and they seem to have really beautiful lives. It's going to be different for everyone, but if I can transition to this one, Laura, but one thing that I would say is
Yes.
that when I started looking around at this, like in the kind of field and career path I was on, I'll be honest, I met some really rich people. So, like I said, one of my degrees early on was in performance and art field, and I once danced on like a $30 million yacht for a party. And like Bill Gates Sr. was there, and like it was just ridiculous. So I've met really rich people, and I'll tell you what, it was not the people who had loads of money who seemed to be spectacularly happy to me. It was people who had found a rich community and meaningful work to do with their lives that made them happy and connected them with community, and they were financially secure, but they didn't have boatloads of money. They had a holistic life design that allowed them to live their privileged lifestyle of doing what they wanted to do and having a rich community. And just over and over again, as a young person, I saw that and it blew me away. And I just knew that is what I wanted. I don't need to have tons of money. I want to be like those people. So, what I would say to a young person who's looking to figure out what's enough for you, look with your heart. Don't look with what the media tells you want. Look for people who are truly happy, not the people who are like, chow, 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 I got lots of money, and they're not the Instagram happy. You don't necessarily want to be Instagram happy. You want to be really happy, and there's a difference, and learn to recognize it.
Yes. Oh, Mike, that's great. And my comment would be similar, to really hone in on what makes you happy and at what point you're content. And then at what point do you go beyond that and everything else you're acquiring becomes a burden? It's more stuff to clean, it's more stuff to store. You have to pay for storage. It's stressing you out to have the stuff that you have or live the life you're living. Be cognizant. So many adults remember their college years, their younger years as these more carefree years where they didn't have objects to maintain and so many responsibilities or worries. And so just really hone in on, what are the things that I truly need, that truly bring me joy and have function and play an important role in my life? And where am I getting over to the excess where these items are much more than enough? In fact, they're a problem for me.
Yeah,
So thank you.
a really interesting thing about so in our thistle strategy for how to be happy and financially secure, um, the last E in the thistle is enough, and understanding what enough is. And in a way, I sometimes say, Laura, that I think that's the most powerful tool in all of our thistle strategies. And because when you think about it this way, if you don't know what enough is for you, then you can spend your whole life digging that hole deeper, looking for more. You can spend your whole life trying to be Jeff Bezos. So, how much is that guy worth now? Like a gajillion, bajillion dollars, like hundreds of billions or something. So as soon as you figure out that you don't need that, you just saved yourself hundreds of billions of dollars. You got the same level of happiness, but you got it for $100 billion cheaper. That's the most powerful tool we've got.
That's a great tool. And I just don't think that that guy's very happy. He's got a lot of stress. And yeah, he doesn't, I don't think, can't imagine he's got very rich connections and supportive, truly supportive, heartfelt community in his life. But enough
Yeah,
on him. But yes, thank you. Um, so I'd also like to talk, Mike, about, I think this idea that you've been talking a lot about, this DIY Green New Deal, really feeds into this as well, although it might not be so obvious. But we need young people, we need all people to really rethink the livelihood choices they make. There is so much work to be done addressing our major social and environmental issues instead of perpetuating them. And there are amazing opportunities out there to earn good money doing this, either working for the organizations that are doing this work, or being an entrepreneur and creating your own, forging your own path with this. There are some great examples out there of, I look to Zach Weiss of Water Stories and what he's doing with, getting people to think more about holding water in the land and how important that is, and how he started a training program to train people to do this amazing work. And he's probably, I don't know his age, but he doesn't even look like he's 30 years old, or maybe no more than 35. I think of Brad Lancaster and what he's done with rainwater harvesting out in Tucson, Arizona, and how many people he's impacted with this work. And those are just two examples, and those are very environmentally green focused, but there are others. We need to rejuvenate, restore, and regenerate so many depleted people and parts of the planet. So maybe you want to talk about your ideas of the DIY Green New Deal and how this could fit into, money advice for the class of 2023.
Yeah, and so that term too, I I think especially if you're a young person, I know that a lot of young people, from what I see, are very concerned about the world that they're inheriting. And so we have this idea of the Green New Deal, and some politicians are talking about this idea of the Green New Deal, and this goes back to the old New Deal, by Roosevelt, by Franklin Roosevelt. What he said was that at that time the economy had stopped serving Americans well, and what we needed was a new deal from life, with our country. And the idea was, as he said, any American. I think we should blow this up to citizens of the whole world. I think everyone in the world is owed this. But what he said is that, if you work for your country, if you do good work for your community, then any American who does that should be able to thrive. Not just meet their ends meet, or make ends meet. They should be able to have a house and a family and thrive and have a great life and move up the social ladder and all of that. Although we might think about that a little, how we move up the social ladder differently. Um, and we're in exactly the same kind of situation now. We're in a situation where we know the economy that we have is destroying the planet. It's exploiting people. It's making us unhappy and overworked. It's a dysfunctional economy. We need a new deal where we can work sane hours, where we can do good work instead of working for a destructive economy and destructive corporations. We should be able to, and anyone who does this regenerative work should be able to thrive. The problem is, I'm not convinced that politicians are going to be able to do this for us in time or right away. So it's on us to build this. So we talk about a DIY Green New Deal. And Laura's right. There are so many ways you can do it. But to me, it all comes back to these same kinds of strategies. Uh, Thinking about transition so we know what we're doing, thinking holistically about how we're going to meet our needs, having an investment plan. And again, that doesn't mean the stock market, but it can be so many things. Investing in what you want to see happen in the world. There's so many ways to do that. But everyone who does this and is successful with it, they are thinking about what they're investing in, and teaming up, building community for yourselves. All those things that we were talking about with those thistle strategies, it really all comes back to those. And if you get those right and you do that, you really can build your own personal Green New Deal. You make a new deal with yourself that you're going to be able to be both happy and financially resilient.
Well, I have guided this conversation so far, but is there anything that comes to mind for you that you wish you had known about money and capitalism in your younger years, or that you want to share with our audience?
Oh, that's a good question. I just really uh, come back to that advice that I was given by that mentor. And again, he was actually, so I talk about it a little more concretely. He was a classical guitar professor, who I studied guitar with, and he had done the same thing. Looking back at his life, he had created this life where he was performing some. He was teaching some. He had a private studio that he was teaching in. He was an adjunct to get a little bit transition. He had a little bit of a day job where he was teaching as an adjunct at a community college. Um, and he was doing a lot of different kinds of things in the music industry. And he was investing whatever money he was getting, he was investing it in creating a music studio that he could then use too. And I went over to his house, and guess what? The guy has a great little garden there because he's thinking holistically about meeting his needs, and he's developed. And he had parties at his house or music performances there, and you could go over there and it would just be dozens of people who were all passionate about music and sharing resources together, figuring this out. So he had all of these thistle elements together. And when I moved on from that, I just kept seeing that pattern over and over and over again with everyone who was doing this sort of thing well. And when I started doing like farming and permaculture as my full time gig, and transforming landscapes. So that's kind of what I have done for the past decade and a half for my living is helping people transform their landscapes into beautiful, abundant paradises. And when I started looking at people who were doing that kind of thing, they had done exactly the same thing as Dr. Martin had. They had the same exact thistle strategies. And I guess that's what I really wish I had learned to recognize that pattern sooner because I saw those people and I was like, I want what they have. But uh, it took me, uh, you know, decades to figure out and to analyze. Oh, that's how they've been able to piece together this financial security, doing these awesome things with their lives.
Yeah. And I think there's there's a quote from the book The Psychology of Money. I think it's something like wealth is what you don't see, and I think that we think that, money and rich people and wealth is all about the big, the flashy, the yachts, the private jets, the big houses, but it's so much more about what people are saving and investing and not spending. And one thing I wish I had understood earlier is that a lot of people that have those flashier items, especially cars, they're often leasing them, or they don't own them, and they're in the end the people that often look so wealthy in our day-to-day lives, if you actually looked at their net worth or their balance sheets, it's probably a negative, that it's not a positive because they're in debt. And so really having that reframe of understanding that just because someone doesn't look as wealthy as the person next to them, they may actually still be wealthier, when you actually look at the numbers. And they have more control over their life. They have more autonomy. They're not making decisions out of fear like the other person is who's in all the debt and has to make all those monthly payments. And so, yes, someone wrote, wealth is free time. That's a big part of it. That is a big part of wealth, and that autonomy over our time. And I I really encourage the young people on here to think about what really makes you happy. Not what Instagram or TikTok or social media or anybody else is telling you makes you happy. Focus on that, get crystal clear on that and what you want, and then don't get drawn into the fray of thinking you need to spend money on other things that are going to take you away from that or beyond that, or just bring you into a stressful place in life. So much of actually good sound money advice is around, it's behavioral, it's a behavioral science, economics. And there's just so much to focus in on, and our behavior and what we really want. And I encourage you to look at your spending from time to time and really think, question yourself, is my spending taking me towards what I really want in life? Or is my spending moving me in the opposite direction? Is it keeping me from getting what I want in life, and getting closer to it? I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mike.
No, other than that's just very eloquently put. And I think the same thing. And yeah, not to quote good old rock and roll songs, but the best things in life are free. And and there's so many things that are great experiences that truly make us wealthy and rich and have this just phenomenal lives that aren't really about money. And you know when we focus too much on getting the money, we're just looking at the symbol. We're looking at a symbol of things. And you look at something like TikTok, and especially, or not TikTok, but Instagram in particular. There's so much like focus on the bling, and and hanging out on like tropical beaches all the time and having fast cars. And well, Laura does hang out on tropical beaches all the time because she lives down there where in the tropics. But you don't have to have that to have a beautiful and meaningful life. And when I think about it this way, there's just been how many generations of humans who I feel like they all had these rich and meaningful lives and discovered amazing things about themselves and each other and built rich, meaningful relationships and built rich spiritual lives too. Uh, and none of that cost money. They didn't need airplanes or fast cars to do that. And those are truly essential human experiences. Taking a selfie on a tropical beach with your fast car isn't really a that's kind of a symbol of someone who's trying to show that they're happy, but maybe it doesn't really mean anything. It's just like the money. It's a paper symbol again, and you can acquire as much of it as you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have true happiness or spiritual richness or any of those things.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard you talk about it before. It's this idea, and this is what you were talking around just now. How do you design a life you don't need to take a vacation from or want to take a vacation from? That your life is just this amazing experience all the way through because you've really gotten clear on what matters to you. That's not to say, never travel, never explore new places, but so many people feel like, oh my God, I need a vacation. I'm so stressed out. I need to get away. And then they go away, and it's like the first 3 or 4 days of their vacation, it's just kind of unwinding, and generally maybe they go for a week, so they get like a day or two of relaxing, and then it's these days traveling is so stressful. It's I call travel hurry, hurry, wait. Hurry, hurry, wait. Well, and hurry, hurry, wait and stress, because your flight got canceled, or it's delayed and you've got to run through the airport to make your next flight. Is your Uber gonna show up on time? And it's just, if we can just think about how do we make our lives more of that beautiful experience, so we don't have to have spend all the money and stress or work to earn all the money, for a stressful vacation experience.
Think, yeah, totally, completely. Think about this. If you're watching this and you see those Instagram things every once in a while, and you see somebody and they look like they're hanging out on that tropical beach and they've got the drink with the umbrella and they're sitting, with you can see their fancy car that they're probably just renting in the background. And you're like, man, they look really happy in that picture. But that's like one little snapshot of their lives. Now, all of those elements that people are showing that are the symbols, the symbols of happiness, like that, all of those things, you can design this is another one of those big things I wish someone had told me when I was like 20. You can design your life so that you can have not just the symbol, but the actual meat and substance of all of those things in your daily life, you know? So, uh, and for example, those people I was talking about before, and actually now at this point, I've met a lot of people who have done exactly the same thing. And you go over to their house, and 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 their house is a beautiful place, and they haven't had to spend a lot of money on it. They have just invested their imagination and their creativity, and they've found free things, and they have turned their house into something that you can't even buy with money. It's so beautiful. You can't buy with money. You can only get it through creativity and collecting and finding free things. Then you go out into their garden, and imagine a tropical paradise. The most beautiful place that you've ever been to is vacation. You can build your own home garden so that it's going to be like that. And if you don't have property, you can help a relative or a family member, a community member build something like that. And my own place, my own life has been that way. So when I recently moved, but at Lily House, you can go and you can find pictures of Lily House permaculture. And my home environment was like the most beautiful place I had ever been. And I'm not bragging, it's just because I designed it that way. I thought of all the patterns of the places that truly felt spiritually resonant and enriching. And I designed my home environment so that it was like that. You see those things. What's the symbol of the drink that person on the beach has? It's a symbol of having those extravagances and luxuries. You can grow those sorts of luxuries in a garden. You can get them through community networks. And having it's that picture is also a symbol of having leisure. But you probably have to do more work more of the time to get that symbol of leisure when you can just actually get the leisure in your life directly. So all of those things that we think are wealth, we can design that into our daily lives. Isn't that so much wealthier and richer than working nonstop for years to go off for 1 week to get that? And also, when you do that, you're probably going to be arguing with your kids and spouse the whole time.
100%. Yes, to all of it. For me, nature is the ultimate luxury. So, find pockets of it in your community. If you don't own property, if you do, build it out on your property. My boyfriend's yard is and home inside and out is very much what you are talking about. Like it's a complete authentic expression of his personality and his appreciation of creativity and just his own way of living creatively and his food forest. We're in Florida, so he's got two mango trees, star fruit, a dwarf mulberry that's fruiting, and that's avocado, and that's just the beginning of it. And it's a magical place when he puts the lights up at night and there's a campfire, going. Well, I guess it's not a campfire, but a bonfire going at night. And, people love his place. They love to come hang out there and spend time there. It's such a magical, special place. And he's exactly one of those people. He's very skilled. He has a 25-year-old truck that he has kept repaired on his own for 25 years. You would look at this beat up truck and not expect him to, be a financially solvent person, but he's lived that life of enough, but a very rich life of enough, and it's just a magical world to be part of.
Yeah, my the life that I was able to build for myself using these thistle strategies, my lifestyle was I worked helping people transform their own landscapes into this sort of beautiful, abundant paradise that we're talking about right now. And that means, on a day to day basis, my office, the place I worked in, was this extremely beautiful place that I would walk out to every day. My breakfast was out there waiting for me, and all of these luxuries of food. It grew a complete diet there. And so there were all of these great vegetables there on an almost daily basis. People were coming over to play with plants with me and to learn about them and to pick up plants and things or pick up worms or whatever. So I had friends coming over on a daily basis because I had all this free time. We'd walk around the garden and chat. We'd make some tea from whatever herbs were in season and sit there and chat. I had a lot of time to spend with these people. and then on a regular basis, we had events where people would come over and fill the whole garden with music and stories and cultural events and learning events. And so it was like it, it was just a truly amazing life to have that around myself all the time. And then of course it was the same thing too. It was beautiful indoors too, not because we spent a lot of cash on it, but because we had time and space to invest our imaginations in building this beautiful place on the cheap. And um and yeah, and the thing is too, I always tell people, if you're a bad gardener, it's actually usually a sign that you're a good gardener. So that's a little bit counterintuitive, but we had a question down there about it. And the reason why is the way our society teaches most people to garden don't really make much sense, because they're all about going to war and fighting nature instead of nurturing things that happen naturally. And people who have a naturally high natural intelligence, they learn really quickly that the standard approach just doesn't feel good to them and it doesn't work good to them. And so a lot of times people who say that they're bad gardeners end up being the best permaculture gardeners, by the way. So that's one tip. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be a bad gardener. And then even if you are, you can network and build a connection with someone who is a good gardener, and you can still have a great gardener even if you're not the one doing the gardening.
Yes. The last point I wanted to make, I mentioned earlier that so much of what we talked about is behavioral, and that's very true. But I also want to, since we are talking about money advice for young anti-capitalists or the class of 2023, there is something to be said for actually stepping up to money and getting comfortable, earning it, spending it, managing it, and investing it and handling it. And don't be afraid to look at those numbers. I really actually encourage you to have a sense of what do your numbers come out to. I know, Mike, you're not a fan of the expression net worth, and maybe you have a better term for people to use, but to really get a sense of, is your money life a positive? Is it a negative? You're younger, so, especially if you have college debt, it may be a negative, but try to be cognizant of it. Try to look at the numbers, not be afraid of them. Understand that there are strategies to move you from a negative to a positive number. But definitely, we need anti capitalists to handle money and manage it, because the more comfortable we get with it, the more we can earn of it to take out of the extractive, harmful capitalist system, out of the hands of greedy billionaires. And then we can be buying art that our friends create. We can tip the band, or maybe even hire the band for a party that we host at our house. We can invest in each other's businesses. We can invest in our local community. We can use money as a force for good. So we definitely, there's a lot of behavior and money and choices and decisions, but it's also really just getting comfortable looking at your money numbers and making smart decisions around money. I don't know.
That's Yeah, that's so important too. And I had something. I had something. and and then I was thinking of I was trying to remember a song about it, and I couldn't remember the song, and so then I got completely lost there. Um, could Laura, could you remind me what the topic you were just talking about was?
I was talking about actually, along with being an anti-capitalist
Oh,
or a reluctant capitalist, that even though we feel that way, it's still important for us to get comfortable with handling, managing money, looking at our money numbers.
yeah. Yeah, and so what I was going to say is that this is another thing that I wish I had been told when I was younger, was that being against capitalism, being an activist, being an anarchist or an anti-capitalist of any kind, doesn't mean you need to die broke in a gutter. Being anti-capitalist doesn't mean being anti-money. Money is not capitalism. Making a living is not capitalism. Even you thriving is not capitalism. Us being able to thrive, in fact, that's part of capitalist propaganda, is that the whole idea of like socialism means we're all supposed to like, die poor in a gutter someplace. And that's not true at all. In fact, part of the whole idea of anti-capitalism is that we should be able to thrive better and be better off in a better functioning system. And so it's important to be able to remind ourselves that, that doesn't mean that we have to be poor if we want to be, an activist and dismantle systems of oppression. So in fact, our opinion and what we write about in Growing Free is that we will be better at dismantling systems of oppression, dismantling destructive parts of the economy, and creating a new, better economy if we have financial resilience together. So, especially if you're watching this, this means that you care about these topics. You care about building a more just and sustainable society. Then Laura and I want you to have money. We want you to thrive because we know that isn't it time that people who actually care about this stuff have the money instead of people who want to turn everything into money all the time? We should be the ones controlling these systems, not the people who want to sell and burn and destroy everything for $1. So that's something to keep in mind, is that it's okay. It's okay to try to thrive and make money. And sometimes even I still need to remind myself of that because our whole system seems so dystopian that like I will recoil from it, but we don't have to. You are a citizen of this earth. You deserve to thrive here.
Yes. All right, I'm going to start winding this down. We've been at this for almost an hour, although I do want to give anyone who's on with us a chance to ask one more question. If you have a question, if you could type it in quickly, we're happy to get to it. But it is almost 8 o'clock where I am, and I'm gonna need to get going in a bit. But hopefully, we've given you some food for thought as you navigate your money journey. Hopefully, if you found this helpful, you'll share these thoughts, with your friends, engage people in conversation. One thing that, we don't talk about money enough. Get comfortable, while you're younger already having money conversations. And if you have any friends, any people in your life that are graduating this year, high school or college, we highly recommend our book, Growing Free. Or if you're here interested in wanting to take a deep dive into what we're talking about, it's Growing Free, financially resilient and economically empowered, building the life of your dreams without selling your soul or destroying the planet. And you can get it via the link in my bio here on TikTok, or you can go to growingfree.money. Help us spread this message out into the world, and so we can, rescue more people from the hamster wheel, the rat race, and just, you know, trying to get them on a good path early on so they don't wonder later, how did I get here, in my 50s in this miserable spot. So,
Yeah, awesome.
any
And
thoughts on building? Oh, we got one question. Any thoughts on building credit? I think so. A few thoughts would be great that you're already thinking about this. I think um, credit cards can play a role in this, but you want to be very, very careful. Do not take on putting things on a credit card if you can't pay it off the same month that you charge it. Um, if you're thinking about credit cards, please don't do it unless you're going to be able to pay off the card. Mike, do you have anything you want to say about suggestions for building credit?
um, same, and there's one other tool in our book for the I in thistle is about investing, and we talk about investing strategies. And a lot of one thing when we're thinking about credit and even using credit, um, that we don't recognize the opportunity to use that credit to buy what we in our book would call regenerative or transformative assets. If you're going to take credit card debt on something, if you can do it for something, instead of like buying cheap plates from Target or cheap shoes that are going to break down in a month, if the credit can help you afford in advance a pair of shoes or a pair of dishes or something like that that will last you for decades. You're at a point right now where you can invest in things like boots that will last you literally decades and actually look more attractive and beautiful at the end of that's something that rich people know, right? Instead of buying cheap things, they will buy things that grow in beauty with their use over time and actually continue to be functioning and can be repaired. And, so if you're going to use credit, why not use it on things that will actually make you wealthier over time instead of buying things that are going to dig you deeper into the hole? And then, like Laura said, just being careful about going into debt otherwise. But building credit is really, really important at your age.
Yes, and it's great that you're thinking about it. And for others who maybe haven't thought about it, it plays, it can impact, your auto insurance rates. It can impact all kinds of expenses that you might incur in life. So it is really good to be cognizant of building up a good credit score and paying attention to your credit score, keeping up with your payments. Missing a rent payment or a utility payment can damage your credit. And unfortunately, it can really come back to bite you later on and make life more expensive for you. So good that you're thinking about it already. Okay, I'm going to end this now. Thank you,
It,
everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Mike, for joining me. This was great. Appreciate it. Um, thank you to all who joined. Oh, yeah, there you go. Good mushroom leather boots. That's a great investment. Good night, everybody.